Hello again, everybody. I'm Chris Mooneyham, and welcome to the TCA All Sports Report. As always, brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, 680 The Fan, and of course, the Touchdown Club of Atlanta. Welcome into this TCA All Sports Report, the first week of February 2015. And speaking of which, February, of course, the celebration of Black History Month, and I want to remind you folks to join us next week as I'll have a great story. I just got it last week from our resident historian at the TCA, Brad Walsh. He relayed a great story to me that I'm going to deliver to you folks in celebration of Black History Month next week in our Ever Wonder portion of the program. It involves one of the great head coaches in college football history. Without further ado, let's find out what's happening. Well, no question what the focus of National and Georgia high school football fans will be, at least, National Signing Day. February 4th, Wednesday to be precise, will start bright and early down at the College Football Hall of Fame on Marietta Street. Yet again, 680 The Fan, the Touchdown Club of Atlanta, and Fox 5 have come together to form one of the great National Signing Day events across the country. And I'm not just saying that because I know all the particulars involved. I've been to National Signing Day events in many, many states for many, many years, and there is no question that these three organizations, if you want to call them, 680, the TCA, and Fox 5 together put on an absolutely great National Signing Day event. And without further ado, let's take a look now at our positive athletes from the state of Georgia. We'll start with Todd Bryant Jr., or TJ for short. He's a junior boys basketball athlete at Dominion Christian School in Cobb County. Aside from being an active member in his church, TJ's a very dedicated volunteer with the Mentor Up AARP Tech program. Now what they do is they assist the elderly in taking classes to learn how to use new technologies. Next is Mackenzie Anderson. She's a senior cheerleader and girls tennis player at South Paulding High School, Mackenzie, a volunteering all-star. She serves as an assistant coach for the 5th grade cheer team. She volunteers in an autism classroom, and she's become an active member in Relay for Life. And finally this week, Juanita Pardo is a senior girls cross-country athlete at Milton High School in North Fulton. Juanita's been described by her coach as not just a phenomenal runner, but an even better leader. She's been an organizer of several community service projects for her team. And don't forget, viewers, you're the key to the nomination process. Just visit georgia.positiveathlete.org for further details. You can be a part of the nomination process. You can be a family member or a fan. Of course, you can work at a local high school, being an administrator or a coach, and nominate a young man or woman who contributes inside of their community and or at their local high school. They can play any sport, be any gender, and of course, can be any class as well. For further details, again, visit georgia.positiveathlete.org. Coming up next, we reach deep into the history bag and see what we pull out for one of our favorite segments that we like to call Ever Wonder? This week, TCA historian Brad Walsh takes on the difficult task of isolating the greatest classes of athletes ever honored by the TCA in a single year. Now let me backtrack. Let's say that one more time and make sure that everyone out there understands. In a single year, TCA nominees, the greatest single year collection talent-wise. Now, Brad Walsh starts with 1993. He says, this was an incredible group, as you will see, not just in football, but in baseball and basketball as well. Boy, ain't that the truth. When you get to names 3 and 4, you really, really know it's true. But we'll start with two Dunwoody High School stars who led the Wildcats to the state championship in 1993 at the 4A classification. Two guys that were all-state performers in not just their senior years, but their junior years as well. And both guys who went on to play together at the University of Georgia. We're talking about back of the week Rod Perryman and lineman of the week Travis Stroud. If you ever had the opportunity to see those two guys play on the same team, boy, oh boy, was it incredibly, incredibly dominant. One of our backs of the week that year out of Marist was Matt Harpering. Harpering, who went on to the Georgia Institute of Technology, where he really was one of the great players in that program's history. And, you know, a lot of people forget just how impressive his 11-year NBA career was. Then there's George Lombard. George Lombard. Now, that's a name that'll bring back a lot of memories for a lot of you out there at a lot of different levels of competition and for different sports, of course. George was a two-sport star, no question about it. One of the best two-sport stars this young broadcaster had ever seen. I was in absolute amazement at this guy. He, of course, decided not to go to college, at least not immediately, signed a contract with the Atlanta Braves. Unfortunately for George, never could quite get over the hump. The back out of Lovett played 144 games at the major league level. How about Larry Brown, a lineman out of Crammed? That's the same Larry Brown who went on to the University of Georgia, played football and basketball, but decided to try and concentrate on a potential NFL career. Unfortunately for Larry, he spent just 1 year in the National Football League. Dax Langley, a name many of you may have forgotten, a special teams player out of Heritage High School. Dax, a four-year starter at the University of Georgia at punter, and still ranks in Georgia's all-time kicking records. And perhaps the biggest name from 1993, Hines Ward. Hines, the Forest Park product, was an all-SEC player at the University of Georgia. Many of you know, of course, that he went on to star for the Pittsburgh Steelers, won 2 Super Bowls, 4 Pro Bowls, and a lot of people don't realize, you know, he had his number 86 retired. Brad reminds me of that, and he was named, apparently, to Pittsburgh's all-time team. But my favorite stat of the week, this week, is the next one. Who do you think was the TCA's Bobby Dodd Award winner that year? The back of the year, nationally, in 1993, was none other than Peyton Manning. Brad wants me to remind you that we'll revisit this topic throughout the year with more nominees and select a greatest class ever later in the year. Time now to take a look at what's next. Well, the biggest storyline of what's coming up next is the final week of the Georgia high school basketball regular season. Surprised? Don't worry about it if you are. There are a lot of people who were caught off guard. We've been so wrapped up in so many different storylines. A lot of people kind of lost track of the fact. I was speaking to a broadcasting buddy of mine just last night, and he was shocked. He had completely whiffed on the fact that it was the end of the regular season for Georgia high school basketball. But you know, no fear. That's what I'm here for. The reason I bring it up, of course, is brief tutorial. Remember, in classes 2 through 6A, in 2A through 6A, 32 teams make the Georgia high school basketball tournament. 8 regions, 4 teams from each region, 8 times 4. But what's important about basketball to remember is that you must make the semifinals, of your region tournament to reach the state tournament. That's how the regions do it. That's how the state tournament does it. You reach the region semifinals, you advance to the state tournament. So that's why the last week of the regular season is so very important, and I decided to talk about it in the What's Next segment of our program. Some of the bigger regions will begin their tournaments, of course, on Tuesday, most on Wednesday, and some of the smaller ones will start on Thursday, the 12th. Remember, every single year, we have a big-time team that has a great regular season, gets knocked out in the quarterfinals of their region tournament, and does not make the state tournament. In fact, 4 or 5 years ago, we had a team that was undefeated, number 3 in the state, lost in the region quarterfinals, and did not make the state tournament. It happens just about every year. Maybe not to that extreme, but some big team will get knocked off in the next couple of weeks and not reach the state tournament. The GHSA Swimming and Diving State Championships are coming up at the end of this week, February 5th through the 7th at the Georgia Tech Aquatic Center. All diving and swimming finals will be broadcast live on the NFHS network at nfhsnetwork.com. Yours truly will be on the play-by-play coming up this Saturday. I'm looking forward to it greatly. First time I've had the opportunity to call swimming or diving state championships anyway, so I'm really, really looking forward to it. Again, you can watch the finals live and order DVDs after the event at nfhsnetwork.com. swimming.com/GHSA. Again, the GHSA Swimming and Diving Championships, February 5th through the 7th at the Georgia Tech Aquatic Center. Coming up next, My Take. I wonder why I'm not more angry. I wonder why I'm not more saddened by the situation, or perhaps appalled. Am I just disillusioned, or am I desensitized? It was learned this week that the GHSA is actively involved in investigating yet another program in the state of Georgia for potential cheating. This time, it's a highly decorated championship caliber program down in Albany, the Patriots of Westover. Their men's program has allegedly been cheating this year. Now, there are tiers to this cheating, not that I'm making light of one form of cheating over the other. We'll get to that in just a second. But we've heard that there are players from other districts that are playing on the Westover program, or in the Westover program, I should say, and that there are young men that are academically ineligible. Here's where it turns to another level. Apparently, allegedly, there's been grade fixing and falsified documents. Now let me put this in perspective for you for just a moment. Remember that Westover is a 6-time state champion. In fact, from 1988 through 2001, Westover played in 8 state championship games in that 14-year span. They won titles in 90 through 93, so 4 consecutive years, and in 98 and 01, losing the title game in 88 and 96. That was under legendary head coach Willie Boston. Dallas Smith took over in 2002, and he's led the program to a state runner-up finish in 09 and 5 Final Four finishes. Now, I didn't happen to know all those numbers just off the top of my head. I covered Westover just last year in the GHSA state basketball tournament, the semifinals to be precise, over in Carrollton, at that fine coliseum that they have on the West Georgia campus. But I break out these numbers to put in perspective just how dominant this program's been since 1988. And to remind you that throughout, like so many highly decorated programs in the state of Georgia, there have been whispers. There's been innuendo. There's been claims, proclamations, and accusations. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not defending Westover, and I'm not saying they're guilty either. In fact, that's part of the problem. I think we've become so used to, or maybe I shouldn't say we and speak for you out there in viewer land, but I can certainly speak for myself. As I sat down here to do the TCA All Sports Report this week, I realized I'm not even that angry about another team in the beloved GHSA that I love so much being accused of a major potential cheating scandal. I'm not that angry. I'm not that appalled, and I'm not really saddened by it anymore. And that's when I realized it. Because that's exactly what I said. Anymore. It's a shame now that from the AFC Championship game all the way down to Georgia high school athletics, when we hear these stories, sometimes we'll laugh and shrug our shoulders and say, well, that's Belichick for you. Or, well, that's a championship program for you. We almost come to expect the cheating. I got news for you. If you come to expect it, you'll come to accept it. I don't know if I'll ever accept it, but I'm almost getting to the point where I've come to expect it. Until next week, I'm Chris Mooneyham for the TCA All Sports Report.